The next speaker is Gregor Kruk. He's working in the Accelerator Controls Division at CERN since 2003 in the area of settings management, data acquisition and graphical user interfaces. And he's going to talk to us about a question which I think many people in the Java GUI world ask themselves. What about JavaFX?
Okay, thank you for introducing me. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so the title of my talk contains the word Java. So as you can guess, this is the language that we used to develop our controls applications. And by controls applications, I mean those that really have an access to the devices. So they change settings, they do acquisitions, or monitoring of the devices. We obviously have also web applications, which we use, for instance, for configuration services and other things. But here my focus is the control. So for more than 15 years, our main GUI toolkit was Swing, as probably for many of you. But something like 2-3 years ago, different developers started to try out JavaFX a bit here and there. And recently, we decided to completely switch to this toolkit basically for all our new developments. So the idea for this talk was to share with you a few thoughts. And in addition, I wanted to use this opportunity to actually see or find out what you are doing. So if you are in a similar situation, please approach me and talk to me. I would be very interested to learn what are your plans and what are your ideas. Okay, so I will start with a quick introduction of JavaFX for those of you who might not be familiar with it. It's a GUI toolkit, as I mentioned, a successor of Swing, which was announced as the better Swing, or Swing done the right way. So the main part of it is a set of widgets, rich and quite nice looking set of widgets. But that's not the only thing. On top of it, the toolkit provides a charting package, animations, 2D and 3D graphics, HTML content, and support for media. And one of the fundamental architectural design decisions of this toolkit was a separation of concerns. So in Swing, you would put or develop your GUI entirely in Java, so everything is Java code. In JavaFX, actually, this is separated. So the layout, the logic, and the visual aspects are separated into separate, elements. So the layout is designed with a graphical tool called Scene Builder, and then the result is saved in a fxml file, which is just a dedicated XML format. Then every fxml can have its own associated controller, which is simply a Java class where you would put the logic. And then the visual aspects, like colors, fonts, etc., you describe using a CSS format. So the link between the fxml file and the controller, it's actually handled by the mechanics of JavaFX. So it would inject, so if you declare some widgets, some components, it would inject it to your controller. And in a similar way, it does for the actions. So all the user events will be forwarded to the corresponding methods of the controller. So overall, this approach is very productive. So you can quickly develop applications that look nice, and the overall result, it's quite clean and elegant, I would say. So it's all great. But unfortunately, JavaFX, like Swing actually, it does not provide any guidelines, neither for the architecture nor for the code. So you will find a lot of examples, a lot of tutorials how to use the individual components, but there is no manual that would tell you how to put those building blocks into a bit more complex applications. So basically, if you have a relatively small, collocated team, it can agree on things and do them at least coherently. But if you have many developers that are spread in different teams, in different groups, developers that not necessarily do the GUIs regularly, this is becoming a tricky. So every team, every developer may end up doing the GUIs in its own way. And that's basically bad. It's bad for the sharing the development. It's bad for sharing components. It complicates the taking over. And in general, it's bad for the maintenance. I think I don't have to convince you to that. So we had a look at a few frameworks which are out there. But at the end, what we decided to do is just to propose a common structure to all the applications and some means, tools, to encourage or to maybe even enforce the structure to be followed by all the developers. So for the structure, we decided to stick to a simple convention. So the idea is that all the elements of a single view, they have a common prefix, which is the name of the view, okay? And in addition, you put all those elements in a dedicated Java package. So this is quite obvious, I would say, and pretty easy to remember convention. And this is kind of don't make me think approach, as we say, because developers who do the applications, they don't have to rethink how to structure the code, how to do naming for every new application. And on the other hand, other people, other developers who look at the GUI, who look at the code, with one glimpse of an eye, they can actually recognize all the elements, and they can have a pretty good idea what is inside. So for the tools, well, the next question is what to do to encourage all the developers to follow actually structure. And there we did two things. So one is this XMLView class. We thought to somehow leverage this conventional name, and we got inspired a little bit by one of the libraries. So we developed this class, which, relying on the conventional name, loads all the elements of a single view and basically binds them together. So it's very simple. It saves you every time a couple of lines of code. And it supports also dependent injection. So you can use a built-in support for this inject annotation, or you can plug in an external framework like Spring or Google Juice. The second thing that we've done is Eclipse Plugin, a small Eclipse plugin to generate projects. So essentially, the idea is that the developer just puts the name of his project here, and all the other fields are filled for him while he's typing. Yeah, so the main package name, the launcher name, the SVN location, this will be all proposed for him based on the convention. And then he selects one of the available templates, clicks finish, and the tool generates a ready-to-run application. And the most important part of it, it's this. It's actually a template or set of templates, because in the templates you can put examples of different GUI patterns. So for instance, how to use model view controller or presentation model. You can put examples of how the different views should communicate with each other or communicate with external services. You can put examples of how to access the devices or how to update different widgets. So it's basically a mean on an approach to avoid the situation that the same thing is done in many, many different ways, right? We programmers tend to be very, very creative. And it's good to be creative, but in some cases you want to limit a bit the creativity and you just want people to follow the same predefined path or pattern. So in such template, one can put also test cases, like the unit test or integration tests, so that developers can see that actually writing such tests, it's not such complex. It's actually relatively easy and it can bring a lot of value. So in a similar way, you can create views. So the developer just types the name of the view, and this would generate for him a new package with all the view elements. So overall, those two things, they bring a twofold advantage. Because the XMLView, it simplifies the code on one hand side, but on the other hand, it enforces the structure and naming. And the project generator speeds up creation of projects, but at the same time, it promotes the best practices. So it's a win-win situation. Yeah? You kill two birds with a single stone. But what I wanted to emphasize is that saving a bit of code or saving a bit of time on setting up the new project, it's not the goal in itself. This is just an incentive for the two tools to be used. The real gain, the real advantage is actually on the right side. I'm going to the end, but before I finish, I just wanted to mention two things. One is some charting extensions that we've developed. I had a poster about on Tuesday, but if you missed it, you might want to have a look at it. So it's basically features that most of the controls application need, but they don't come out of the box. And the second thing, it's a little feature for Eclipse. So if you also happen to use the Eclipse, you might find it useful, or you might actually use it. It's basically to generate fields and method handlers for the FXML controller. So the idea is that if you add a new component, a new widget to your GUI, you save it, you click a command, and this will basically generate a field and a method handler, putting it in the right place. So quite small, but quite handy. So to summarize, JavaFX, it's a rich, mature, and productive toolkit, but there is no standardized framework for it. So what we decided to do, at least for the moment, is just to define a simple convention, tools, and templates to, on one hand side, to simplify the coding, to speed it up, but on the other hand, to somehow ensure that all the applications that are created are somehow coherent. These tools that I mentioned, the XMLView, the project creator, are really simple. That's something that you can do yourself probably in a few afternoons. For the templates, actually, one can use Maven archetypes, or there's also a tool called Lazybones. So with a small investment, you can actually make big profits, especially in the long term. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. It was very interesting. You talk about web application in your introduction. Did you experiment calling JavaScript modules in JavaFX panel?
No, I must say we did not experiment that yet. I mean, we were discussing different options, including the one of completely moving to the web, but calling JavaScript from JavaFX, no, not. But if you have some thoughts, ideas, I would be interested to know.
Here's another question.
Thank you for your talk. Very interesting. I'm wondering how you enforce user interface conventions such as colors, fonts, sizes, that sort of thing. Do you have any tool set that enforces that, or is that just a convention that you build into documentation?
Well, we don't have tools to enforce it, but for this, what we thought as well is just to put in our templates the CSS, right? Because the colors, fonts, etc., you define in the CSS. So in the templates that we prepare, you could just make them all coherent. So that would be an easy way of doing this. Now, if the developer decides to change them, okay, we cannot do much about that, right? Okay. So it's conventions and means to make it all coherent, but not really enforcement. I mean, at the end, the developers can change it.
Okay, thank you. I think any other questions? No. Oh, yes, one more.
I have a similar question about the one of JavaScript. Can JavaFX displays be integrated in an Eclipse RCP application or Swing-based application?
I'm not sure I understood.
If a JavaFX display can be integrated in an application which is based on Eclipse RCP.
Which is based on?
Eclipse RCP.
Yes, actually I had a chat this week with one of the CSS developers, and that's what I understood what they do. They actually embed the JavaFX panels or panes inside the Eclipse RCP. So as far as I know it works. I didn't try it myself, but as far as I know it works, but there are some performance issues. But I would recommend you to talk to... Thank you.
Probably you got it.